The object that I chose to do was to make a spider. Protruding out from the center section.
It's going to be spread to a thick disc.
Oh, I want to quench the tip so it doesn't collapse. And what I ended up using was pipe for the body and the head, and solid stock for the legs. I used pipe because the mass of the body of the spider, if it was solid, it would just make the weight more extreme. And because I intend to use it as a wall hanging, I wanted to keep it as light as possible. Turning a piece of tubular steel to pinch both ends. So what you're doing is you're trying to create a sphere. The pinching of both ends, the technical term for that is called fullering. And if you can imagine clay. Clay is probably the best visualization on how metal moves because it's exactly the same way. So what you do is you pinch hot tubing in a very specific pattern, and it's called a fullering tool. And what that does is it compresses, and you rotate and compress and rotate, and what it does is it eventually will collar down and pinch the tubing. And if you do that all the way, you can pinch it almost closed. There's still going to be an opening that needs to be welded, but we use the fullering tool under the power hammer, which is much quicker. I love using any tools and equipment that make my job easier. So that was the body, and the head was the fullering of the tube. And then there's 8 legs, and those were forged out of round stock. And we heat that up and forge. And the process of taking a piece of steel and drawing down a taper, which would replicate, the tapered ends of spider legs. Tapering is probably the most basic technique that blacksmiths learn. That's the very first thing that a blacksmith learns how to do after fire tending. What we used for the spider was the coal forge, and we used both power hammers. I have 2 mechanical hammers. The hammer, the biggest hammer is a Baudry, and that is approximately 1912 was its date of being made. And then the smaller hammer is a 50-pound Mayer brother, and that was a little bit later. That was like 1915. Anyway, how did I get these 2 pieces of equipment? A friend of mine, Joby Spencer, he was critical in helping me get my shop established within the first year of me buying this building and saying, this is what I want to do with my life. We had to do a little rebuilding, but honestly, the old equipment, I have such a connection to things that are old and also people that are old. I love old. And part of it is that there's a history behind it, and I can feel that history in the hammer just as much as if I was talking to an old person about his youth or her younger days and what life was like in America in the 20s and 30s.